Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insight, tech tips, and real stories from the field. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. Tonight, I am joined by very special guest, Aidan Lucey. But first, here's a quick tip from our friends at Viper. In commercial kitchens, clean coils and evaporators are essential, and Viper's NSF registered products are the best choice. Safe, effective, and formulated to keep kitchen systems running smoothly. Thanks, Viper, for taking care of sponsoring the show and keeping us, out here going in these kitchens. These products are top notch. No heavy smells. Safe to use in the kitchen, so it works out pretty well for me. So, what is going on, Aidan? I know we talked back and forth for quite a while trying to get you on here, and we had a little mishap last night. I was cleaning up some storm damage and everything else. We kind of just missed the show last night, so I asked if you'd do it tonight, and here we are. So, what's going on, buddy?
I don't know, another busy day in grocery stores today. We're running around cleaning honeycombs and trying to find leaks.
Yeah, that does not sound fun. I like watching the grocery store videos and stuff. And I'm like that'd be cool, but then I'm like, man, I am working, like in some of those freezer cases and stuff. I'm like, this does not sound fun. Like, there's no hot water, or you're taking out, big industrial garbage cans full of water and pumping them in, and like, oh look, the drain's clogged. The drain's clogged down, flooding half a grocery store. Now I got to deal with this mess. I'm like, oh, this is not. It'd be cool for a day, and then when I realized what I'd have to get into, I'd be like, nope.
Yeah, some days are good, some days are bad, right?
Going into a rack room and you can't hear yourself think. I'm like, yeah, that sounds real appealing too. So
that's okay. Just turn the headphones up louder, right? Turn the tunes up.
Yeah. So Aidan's got a pretty cool story. He's been doing this for quite some time and on a couple different continents actually. So let's get started, man. How did you get into refrigeration?
By accident.
A lot of guys say that, man, and and a lot of guys, they found their true calling by accident by getting into a trade. So how did you find this by accident?
I originally signed up I was trying to get into plumbing, but it was hard to get an apprenticeship, right? Because it's a lot smaller back home in Ireland. So it's a lot of who you know, not what you know.
Yeah.
So there's always a couple of times we go to every summer, a lot of family. So I went down there, and my uncle has ladders on his van. He goes to work, he does something, I figure. So I'm like, sweet, go work with him for a few weeks. He needed help. He had a big job. It was like 80 mini splits we got to put in.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So just started working with him, and he's like, do you want to apprentice? Okay, sure. Why not?
So started off 80 minute splits, and next thing you know, you're halfway across the world doing refrigeration in grocery stores.
Yeah, I started there. He did like a lot of chillers, a lot of mini splits, and then worked for a place that I kind of got exposed to more of the beer line stuff, like beer line chillers. Then that's when I started getting into more of the hot side of things, a lot of combi ovens, fryers, griddles, all that kind of stuff.
So how long did you do it back in Ireland before you moved?
Did it for about 2005 to 2011. Then I moved over.
Nice. So where are you currently located at?
I'm in Manitoba, so I'm right in the middle, just about 2 hours above North Dakota.
Okay. So cool. So that's cool. So you did 6 years over there. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, actually?
38.
What brought you to Canada, though?
Well, so we were over there right about, the time of that big financial crash, 2008. Everybody's getting laid off. Everything was going to hell over there, too. Mm-hmm. So I started working for this place over there, the Taylor distributor.
Okay. Yep.
And we were trying to decide, okay, well, me and a buddy were like, do we go to Canada? Do we go to Australia? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like go to Australia and I'll put my boot on in the morning. Something's going to bite me. I'm going to die. Chances are I'll go to Canada. And there's not going to be, so many things that are going to kill me walking down the street. Let's try Canada. And if it doesn't work out, we'll go to Australia or New Zealand.
So you chose the blistering cold instead of something that'll kill you.
Exactly. That's my reasoning.
That's funny. So Taylor, you were working on grills and all kinds of stuff then, weren't you?
Yeah, grills, ice machines, all kind of stuff. So then when I was over there, I emailed the Taylor distributor in Canada and said, hey, I'm coming over. I've worked on, all this Taylor stuff. And they just said, yeah, when you get here, hit us up.
That's cool. That's a good thing about working, for that kind of distributorship. I know here it's a little Taylor distributors are kind of privately owned. I don't know if it's that way over there too, but it's still in that network of Taylor, and they're always looking for guys that can work on their stuff. So it seems like a pretty easy swap to come over, over to Canada. It seems like.
Yeah, there was a lot more stuff over here that was different. Like there was no like Slurpee machines, FCB machines, any of that kind of stuff. And most of the grills are electric.
Yeah, it's very rare that you find a gas grill in a McDonald's. And it generally in my market, when there was gas grills, it was always like real old stores, and they just didn't have the electrical capacity for to bring in power to feed those grills, because they're pretty power hungry. I don't know about the Taylors, but I know the Garlands are, it's multiple cords. It's you've got two big 3-phase power supplies, and you've got the single, the hood interlock system stuff. And a lot of these old stores were gas flat griddles, and then they brought over the clamshells, and they just couldn't support the added electricity, so they still had to do gas for like the base.
Yeah, a lot when I first came to Manitoba, it was mostly gas, unless it was like a rural store, and then they didn't have gas, so then it was electrical.
Nice, that's cool. So, how long did you work for Taylor once you came over?
I was with them till about 2016 or so. So I got to go to the Taylor factory and everything. So that was awesome. That was a blast.
So where is that located at?
That was I always get confused. Is that Rockford or Rockton, Illinois?
It's Rockford. So it's not too far from Chicago, really. There's not a whole lot there. There's like John Deere and Taylor, and I think it's about it.
That's about it. And 2 bars. That was about it.
Yep. I've got some friends. Jason, one of my co-hosts, he went to Taylor School in Rockford, Illinois. He used to work for a company that started off owning. It was like one of the world's largest franchisees group for McDonald's, and he did all their service work. And they started a service company, and he worked for them. So he was able to get trained on Taylor because he worked for an owner operator.
Nice.
So he went to Taylor training, and he said it was a lot of fun. But he said there's nothing in that town.
No, they do it right though. Like they rent the whole floor of the hotel. Here's the room for the Taylor guys. They got a PlayStation in there, poker table, pool table. Like they go all out, man. Like when you go to Taylor, it's a blast, and you get to meet all the people who do the tech support on the phones and have dinner with them, so you can put a face to the name and everything.
That's really cool. I always enjoy that when you go to factory training, and like the tech support people there, the engineers, they come and ask you questions. They actually, want your feedback on what makes their equipment hard to work on, or what you can see they could do better. That really shows that these companies want to invest in their product and, the people that work on it.
Yeah, and their training's amazing because the guys doing the training have worked on it in the field, right? Yeah. So then they show you, here's the pile of sheet metal, and then you get to the end, here's your grill, here's your ice cream machine, like fully completed, and you walk through the whole factory floor, really see what goes into everything.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing I've never really gotten into is ice cream machines, and I'm finding myself more and more intrigued by them. I follow several companies that make some ice cream machines like Spaceman, some other stuff, and they're starting to intrigue me. We don't do anywhere I work at, so I don't know if I'll ever get a chance, but I think it's pretty cool, some of the advancements they've made in some of this equipment and how cool it is to work on.
Oh, they're a blast. Yeah, glycol systems, you got boards in them. It's not just relays and stuff anymore, right? Like they can be pretty in-depth.
Yeah, everything's doing VFDs anymore, variable speed drives and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, is this really needed for this? But I guess it is. I worked on today I worked on a pizza oven, and it had like 2 VFDs, like one controlled. Now I understand the one for the conveyor, but then there's like one for the blower. It changed the blower speed up and down, ramped up and down. I was like, this is wild. I was like, this is pretty cool. So
be some good pizza.
Yeah, it was at a bar. It was kind of weird. This guy has a bar. He's wanting to make half of it. He bought the space next to it. He's making it a bourbon bar, 21 and over, and then the other part that's been his bar, he's making it family dining, so you can bring kids and stuff in there. So he's kind of expanding on it, and he had somebody do a bunch of work for him, and they cut holes in the ceiling for the hood drops, and then never came back. So like his stuff got rained on for weeks. Like brand new ovens are covered in rust and stuff. And it's kind of depressing because the guy got hosed, but
yeah,
I was in there making sure stuff was working and making sure everything could fire up and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, new stuff like that's always cool to see.
Yep. So how hard was it to come to Canada to work? Because I've had some guys reach out to me from England wanting to come over here to the United States to work. And I've talked to some people in our HR department. And they're like, we've tried this in the past. It's an absolute nightmare to try to get them work visas to come to the United States and all kinds. So I was wondering how hard it'd be, to come from Ireland to go work in Canada. Did you have to go through a ton of hoops, or was it pretty straightforward process, or how'd that
It
go?
wasn't too bad because there's a lot of agreements between the two countries. So we're able to get like a 1 year work visa, and it's an open work visa. So it's any employer, any province, any job. So then once you get into, if you're picking refrigeration or any of those, they're compulsory trades, depending on what province you're in. So you have to sign up as an apprentice while you're waiting to get all your stuff verified because you have to be signed up to work in those ones. But it wasn't bad. And then you just renew your work permits. And then once I was finishing up on work permits, I just applied for permanent residency. Like it's a ton of paperwork, but it's pretty straightforward. And like, I don't know, anytime I dealt with Canadian immigration, they're super helpful. Like, always gave you the information you needed. You weren't on the phone all day. Like, it was good. But like, I mean, got immigration lawyers for one part of it because there was just so much paperwork. It's easier to just let the professionals deal with that.
And make sure it's done right so you don't screw it up and cost yourself. Yeah, I can
Oh,
see.
exactly. But
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. Just follow the steps.
So once you got in apprenticeship, so you had to go through the normal Red Seal stuff, then didn't you? Like everybody else up there.
Yeah, because I did it back home, but it doesn't transfer over. So yeah, I redid it again. Signed up for level 1 and did the 4 years again.
Nice, and that's what I like about Canada's licensing program. I talked to a lot of people that live up there, and they've also the same thing. They all did the same process, and they all take a lot of pride that they did it that way. And I didn't realize like you'd work and then you're taking 2 months off to go to school. Like, hey, you got to do this. It's just part of it, and it's just. But they all have that sense of pride that that they worked for what they have, and they're really proud that they passed it and they had their certification. It's really cool to see them have that pride in, going through the process and doing it that way.
Well, and the best part is it's universal across the country, right? You can move to any province and it's a red seal trade, so you can use it anywhere. You've all been to the same standard, and I believe they're harmonizing all the school books, so everywhere is even going to be using the same school book soon.
That's really cool. That makes it nice for everybody. Down here, it's like state by state, city by city, municipality by municipality, and it's the Wild West. Where I talk to a lot of guys, like, you're not licensed. I'm like, my work has a business license and they're insured. And like, I have my 608 universal for refrigeration. That's all I have to have. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this, 19 years, going on 20 years. I'm like, I'm not licensed in anything. They're like, that's the wildest thing. Like, did you go to school? I was like, no. I was like, I've done some stuff through manufacturers. I've done some stuff on my own. And they people are just mind blown, especially like from Canada where they've had, such stringent rules and everything. And
Yeah.
they just don't believe it. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys.
But yeah, like here sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just you guys set the standard, for safety and everything else, and it's really cool that you guys, have that though.
Oh yeah, you get your refrigeration license. Then when you have that, you go get your limited electrical license, and then you go back and you do one more year, and you get your gas fitters. So you're covered up to 400,000 BTU on your B ticket. Then you got to go back do another year if you want to get your A ticket for everything above. Then you get your refrigerant handling license. So it's good. It just try to keep people out that aren't doing things properly as much as possible.
Yeah,
the standards are there.
That's a big thing here. Like, there's guys that we call them trunk slammers. They just roll up in a beat up van or a car and throw parts of something and slam the trunk and hit the road. And some they're not insured, they're not licensed, they don't know what they're doing, or they think they know what they're doing, and that's a big hazard. You could cause a restaurant, you could do worse. I mean, it's wild to see, but it's good to see that Canada is doing their part to try to limit that as much as possible.
Yeah, it's good. The national apprenticeship works, right? No matter what part of the country you're in, you have to do 4 years. Even though, say, you got your last level of school finished and you're only 3.5 years in, you still have to finish out your last 6 months on the job before you can get your qualification.
That's cool. So now you're currently doing mainly just large scale refrigeration at grocery stores and stuff, correct? Or you do more than that?
Yeah, a little bit of HVAC, probably like 90% refrigeration and a little bit of HVAC in there.
So do you work for a big company, a small company? Who do you work? You don't have to say their name, but is it a larger or a smaller scale company? Or
they'd probably be one of the biggest for grocery store refrigeration where I am. And then we're owned by like a big American company.
Nice. I work for a big American company too. It's just to throw that out there.
They've been awesome. Like, I got no complaints. Like, where we work is good, and now we're just getting even more perks. So it's honestly been really good.
Yeah, I can't complain. People are like, don't you not like working for a big conglomerate? I was like, look, man, that's all I know. Like, I started off working for one, and I worked for a couple of bigger shops. They weren't conglomerates, and then for a couple of years, but it's been there very long. And then I ended up where I'm at now for 14 years, and we were a big size company. We got purchased by Partstown, and I mean,
Right.
it is what it is. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I do my job. I take pride in my work. I try my best, and I take care of my customers, and everything else just seems to fall in line. And I think people lose track of that's really all you got to do is take care of your customers, and then everything else is just it falls in place. So.
Yeah, like people overcomplicate it, right? Look after your customers, they pay the company, which means you get paid. Like it's not too much to it, right?
No. So, are you a union shop then where you're at, or are you non-union, or is
No,
everything
we're
union?
open shop, non-union.
Okay, I wasn't sure how it worked there. I know a lot of guys are union. I wasn't exactly sure how it is there. It's I don't know the split here in stateside. When I was an electrician, when I came out of high school, I was union before some stuff happened and I got out of that field. But I mean, I don't care union or either way. I mean, as long as you're working and you're happy where you're at, who cares?
Yeah, you got hours, you're going to pay me. I'm happy.
So you do a lot of racks in. What's some of the bigger stuff you work on in grocery stores?
Yeah, lots of racks, mostly rack systems. The odd self-contained kind of here and there. Lots of CO2 now as well. And then we do some cold storage places like food production as well.
Nice. So what refrigerant mainly are you working with right now in the rack systems?
Bit of everything. I mean, there's tons of 448 coming in. We're
Mm-hmm.
getting lots of CO2, but then there's the odd old R22, or there's a couple of 507s floating around still, but it's all slowly going 448. And then a lot of the brand new stores that aren't retrofitting are just coming in CO2.
Yeah, I've always been curious about the CO2. I've like heard bits and pieces about it from like Brett Wetzel and stuff, and I find it pretty intriguing because the pressures and critical and transcritical and all this stuff. I'm like, man, that seems like it'd be cool to learn. I said, but it seems like a lot. And like, oh, you'd figure it out in no time. But like, it's not that hard. I'm like, what? So.
Yeah, it seems crazy. Like the first day you walk in, you see 1,200 pounds on the gauge, and you're like, do I tap it? Do I leave it alone? What do I do?
Is this right? I was like, oh, now I gotta. But like you said though, like everything's got gauges on it. You're not hooking. You're not walking up and throwing gauges on something. Most of it already has gauges pre-built into it, so you can see where everything's at and that
Exactly.
kind of stuff. So, and that's
Yeah,
what
I
I did.
mean,
I was like, my hoses are only rated for 700 psi. What do I do? And they're like, oh, there's gauges on everything. You're like, there's level gauges for tanks. There's pressure gauges everywhere. I'm like, oh, like you don't need gauges. Like, no, most everything has it. You're good. Okay.
yeah, it's mostly electronics. Like it's electronic expansion valves, electronic EPRs. Like mostly, you just got to get good on controls and like navigating the control system on the computer. Once you get that down, you'll be okay. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff at grocery stores, like combi ovens and stuff like that. And I'll walk by the rack room or the rack controller, and I'm like, I just want to start playing with this. I'm like, because I've seen videos of guys that scrolling through, like doing all kinds of stuff. I'm like, I just want to start, looking at stuff, and I'm like, I better not. Because people are like, what are you doing? Get away from that.
Oh yeah, you'll go down a rabbit hole in there for sure. But it's cool because you can graph everything, you can log everything, you can see what happened, you can make all your changes, and then you can like the biggest thing I found, especially on the older controllers, not as much the newer ones, is if you're making a change, write it down what point you change, write down what you change it from and what you change it to. So in case you messed it up, you know what to change it back to.
That's a good point. You better carry a pocket notebook or take some notes on the phone because, I could see someone changing some stuff and getting stuff way out of whack. And like, what I do, I don't remember. And then you're just hosed.
Oh yeah, you put the wrong sensor on, all of a sudden it's reading -50, and you're like, oh god, what did I do? And you're like, oh, you just got to flip the dip switch. That's all you got to do, and then it's reading properly.
That's funny. Yeah, I always hear like, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass talking all the time about like, sensors with 200 feet, 300 feet of wires going back to controls. I'm like, this stuff's insane. Some of the stuff they talk about, and I can only imagine working on that kind of stuff. What's your favorite part about working on the rack stuff?
I just love that so much could go wrong at any point, so it always keeps it interesting, right? Like it's digging into like the big oil problems is cool. You're trying to track down, okay, this one's not getting oil, but it's not really oil related. It's something else happening with flood back that's causing the oil problem. So the problem you're seeing is just a symptom of the problem.
Yeah,
And tearing down compressors is always fun. Like that's always a good day.
yeah, I like seeing that. Like that's what I understand is like, oh, people rebuilding compressors. I'm like, you can rebuild compressors? I mean, I know you can, but I've like never seen anyone do it. And then someone's doing a video like changing, a valve plate or something, or changing a gasket or putting a new oil pump in one. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, you just valve off the compressor, you just pull a vacuum on the compressor, and you're good to go. Like, get back to it. I'm like, that's pretty slick.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, and I mean, old timers teaching tons
of. yeah. That's what I'm starting to realize now is like when I first started, like the older guys didn't really want to teach anybody anything, but I think now they realize like, oh, we better start teaching people stuff because we're not going to be doing this much longer. Someone's going to take care of this crap.
There's almost nobody left, right? Like there's such a shortage. You got to start teaching.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. I am where I'm at. I brought in my oldest son 3 years ago. And I brought in my youngest son a year ago last week, and then my oldest son brought in one of his buddies. So I have 3 techs, 22 years and under, and it's like it's kind of weird. Like, how do you guys have 3 guys that under 22 and under? I'm like, well, so 2 of them are my sons, and one of them is my son's buddy. It's like all it takes is getting one person, fresh out of high school or 18, 19, 20 years old and showing them that, you're willing to invest in them, you're willing to train them, you're willing to show them how to do this. And then once they start making that money, the rest just kind of falls into place.
Oh, like the first day, they have a rough day and they can't figure something out, and then they finally get it. Everything's working. Like there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, my son, he's been doing it 3 days. He's getting pretty good, but he still has days like where he calls and he's like, I can't fix this. I'm like, what is it? And then he tells me, like today he called me and he's like, man, I can't get this stupid drain line to seal up. He's like, when we were putting this thing together a couple weeks ago, he said, the 90 fell out when Dalton was soldering it and he got it back in. It didn't leak that day, but it says it's leaking now. He said, I've been soldering, trying to resolder this thing for like an hour. I can't get the seal. I was like, dude, heat it up, flux the hell out of it, and just start feeding solder into it. And hopefully it sticks. And he's like, I can't get it. And eventually I was like, take it off and flip it upside down and just pour flux in it, heat it up and just pour a bunch of flux in it, heat it up and just feed a bunch of rod into it, see what happens. He's like, it finally took. He's like, I think I used like 3 feet of solder, but it finally took. I was like, we all have those days, man. I still have
it looks
days.
Like I sneezed on it.
Oh, yeah. Luckily, it's behind you. You get it up against the wall, so no one will see it. But yeah, it looks bad. But we all have those days. I mean, I've been doing this 19 years, and I have days like I have weeks where I can't fix shit. I can't catch a break. I can like even the simplest stuff beats my butt. I mean, it's just you never know what you're gonna get into, and that's what I love about it, really. Let's see what's going on out here. So, if you were to talk to someone young,
oh, you definitely have days like that, right?
Yeah. So if you were to run into someone and ask you what you do, say if you're at a grocery store and you're thawing out a frozen food case, it's froze up, you got to fix a leak in there or whatever you got to do. And someone comes up and they're like, oh, that's a pretty cool job. What do you do? And you explain it to them. What would you tell, if they ask how to get involved, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, to get into trade, the hardest thing is, again, is knowing someone, right? But like here, the local college has a pre-employment program. I believe it's about 4 to 6 months. You could sign up, and it's basically like your level 1. So you can get in there, do that, and then go look for a job. So rather than walking in the door with no experience, you at least have your level 1 theory under your belt, and then you also get to see if you like it.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, try before you buy type mentality. I mean, there's a lot of for-profit trade schools out there to kind of take advantage of people and promise them things, and once they come out, they don't like it, or that, they spend the money on it, they don't want to do it. And I think if you can find a place to let you work there for a couple months before you get, invested in school or anything else to see if you're going to like it is a really great thing to have.
I mean, the nice thing here is school costs you next to nothing. I think we only pay like $500 every time you go.
Nice. That's not bad at all. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good. So you go once a year, correct?
It's pretty good. And then you get paid like once a year, and you get paid by EI, like employment insurance. You get about just under half your wage every week. So, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like unemployment insurance here. You're like, you pay into it, your work pays into it. And then, if you get fired or whatever, you can't work, you go on that for a while. So that's really cool that you still get some income. Especially because, like, you know, it's what, 6-8 week program when you do go to school. Yeah, that's a pretty big commitment, especially people that have families, and, you know, older people that have houses and families and kids and stuff. That's a huge commitment to not work for 6 to 8 weeks. Nice. So, what's some of your favorite?
Up
Internet's being terrible here. Let me see. So, how often are you on call right now? I know a lot of guys freak out about the on-call thing. I'm on call probably once every 5 weeks right now, subject to change. But how often are you on call for your company?
I only had 3 on calls for the whole year.
The whole year, 3?
Yeah.
How big of an area do you have to cover when you're on call then?
We cover the province, so but most of everything is within 100 miles of the border, right? So you don't have to go too far, and anything you got a random middle of nowhere call. Where I am now, it's like, okay, well, it's got to be quoted. We got to plan it. There's hotel stays. Got to load up on parts, because like I worked at different places where, you know, you get a call and you're like, okay, well, there's no roads. We're going to have to fly you in. It's going to take most of the day to get there. Hopefully the weather's good, you can land. Then when you land, hopefully the weather's good so you can leave.
That is wild. That is insane to think of, man. That's cool, though. I'd love to, you know, to see that kind of country, that kind of environment. I live here in central Indiana, and I drive a lot, but if I'm in the city all day, it's not too bad. But some days, you know, I may have to drive 2.5, 3 hours my first call, just depending on where it's at. But to say you have to take a plane ride, or some kind of ride to the job site's a little wild to think of.
I've taken planes, boats, hovercrafts.
I've heard of guys like in the islands out in Hawaii, like having to, you know, take a puddle jumper from island to island and stuff like that. I'm like, that's insane. I'm like, who pays for that? I'm like, that's wild. I've got a friend that his family owns a service company in Hawaii, and he's always trying to come live there. He's like sending me houses, and he's like, this house is like, it's $750,000. I'm like, why are you sending me that? I can't afford that if I move there. And it's like run down, beat up. I'm like, you're not doing yourself any favors here, dude. Like, I don't want to live in something like that for $750,000. Oh no, I lost him. Let's see if he comes back. Give him a few minutes, see if he comes back. Any questions in the chat while I hang out and wait and see if he comes back? His internet was cutting in and out. I don't know if it's mine. Mine says I'm good, so we'll wait. We'll give him a few minutes, see if he comes back. So I am going to start up some training videos. I've been meaning to do it for a while. Collecting some pieces of equipment to work on. So I'm just going to do it. There's not a whole lot of training opportunities out there as far as, you know, I mean, there is some, but it's kind of biased towards, hey, he's coming back. It's kind of biased towards certain pieces of equipment. And I'm trying to change that. So I'm going to start putting some stuff together coming out here real soon. Hey, he's back.
Dropped out there.
Yeah, you kind of paused a couple times. I was like, I bet his internet's kind of being a pain in the butt sometimes.
Yeah, every now and then.
So do you ever go back to Ireland, or do you just pretty much over that part of your life, or what's going on? I'm sure you got family back there still.
Oh, yeah. I was back 2 years ago, and we're planning to go back for this Christmas.
Nice. So are you married or anything? Have kids or anything?
Yeah, I'm married, and I got 2 boys. So we'll bring them with us, too.
So is she from Canada or from Ireland and come with you?
She's from here. I met her when I was fixing the frozen yogurt machine where she works.
Uh-oh. I love it work. I love it. I dig it. That's cool.
And man, it was random. I had parts to go back on a Friday, and I'm like, man, I'm going to go back here. And I got like 2 rear shell bearings to do. I got a condenser fan motor. I'm going to be there all night. But I was like, she might be there. I should probably go back. So I go back. You know, we're talking. Everything goes well. And then like about a month or 2 later, she was like, if you hadn't come back that night, I wasn't working another evening or Friday for 6 months.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great story.
Yeah,
See,
that's a good one.
not only can you make money, you can find your wife, the love of your, the love of your life, the mother of your children. So that's cool.
Oh, exactly. You never know what you're going to get in the trades. You never know what's happening.
I really enjoy the interaction with people. That's probably, I like the satisfaction of fixing something, working with my hands and making a difference that way. But like the interaction with people, I've come to enjoy far more than anything else. Like I've met a lot of cool people over the years. Um, it's just that interaction with people it makes my day because like people can be having a bad day, something's broke, you go in there, you fix it, and like you see their attitude change or their posture change, they relax a little bit. They know, okay, this is gonna be working, this is gonna be all right. And I take a lot of pride in trying to learn my customers and being polite and explaining things the way they understand. And that's really probably become my favorite part of doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I've got a couple of great customers. I've been going there for years. I walk in, they won't let me do anything till I have a coffee with them, sit down, have a chat. And, you really get to know them, right? Like it is a great part of it for sure.
Yeah, I've got some pretty good customers that way too. They always like, "Oh, you want some lunch?" I'm like, "Oh, maybe when I'm done, let's see." Always take care of me. And I've run into some customers like out in public, like not in, like on a weekend at the hardware store. I'll run into somebody, and they start talking to me, and they walk away. And I was like, "How do you know them?" I'm like, they work here. They work here. I fix this there. They take care of this, and it comes full circle.
Oh, it's happened so many times. I've been out somewhere and there was someone shouting from a couple hours down, "It's the bearded wonder." Because I got their AC going with them. I was like, "Who is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, they're at this store."
That's funny. That's cool. Yeah, occasionally, like I gotta try to think, and like I don't recognize. Sometimes I don't recognize people out there in their uniform and stuff. And like I'm trying to think, and then an hour later it hits me. I'm like, oh, they work at this hospital or they work at this restaurant.
They're like, "Oh, hey, man."
I went to the gym one day and this lady was staring at me. I was like, who is she? I was like, I know her from somewhere. And she's staring at me, and she's like, hey, I work here. And I was like, oh, that's right. She's and it's just funny that everywhere I go, I find someone I run into from work. And it's cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing, the city I'm in, it's a little smaller. So when you go to like the main refrigeration wholesaler, you usually run into guys you went to school with 2, 3 years ago. You haven't seen in the longest time. So it's cool. You never know who you're going to bump into when you go there.
Yeah, that's cool. So how big is your city you're out of?
Oh, it's only about 800,000 or so, I think. It's pretty small.
So it's smaller than Indianapolis, not much. I think Indianapolis is like 1.1 million. So it's smaller than Indianapolis, but it's probably still a pretty good sized city. But yeah, you can still run into a lot of guys you worked with or, went to school with in the past for sure.
Oh, yeah. You pass them in traffic or, yeah, you run into them somewhere 100%.
Nice, nice. So how long have you been doing the refrigeration stuff at not restaurants, but the big commercial industrial stuff?
Since about 2016, 2017.
So is that you prefer to work on now? Is that kind of stuff, or do you miss the combi ovens, the greasy fryers, the greasy grills, or?
No, no, I'm done with that. I did my years, dropping your screwdriver and there's so much grease on here to hit the floor.
Dude, I've dropped tools and fryers and everything else, and like you set something down, and I'll be gapping a grill, and I'll set a tool down, don't think about it, and I go to grab it, and it's like burning me. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that grill's 400 degrees, and maybe you not want to set something on the surface of it.
Oh yeah. No, I enjoyed it at the time, but yeah, now I think it definitely found my calling. Like love grocery stores. It's just don't know, when something just clicks with you and you can't explain it, it's just what you like.
Yeah, do you guys work crazy hours up there? I always hear horror stories, guys like grocery store guys. Oh, I worked 102 hours this week. I worked 97 hours this week. Do you guys work like that, or are you guys pretty?
Oh, if you're on call, yeah. Like I remember I had one weekend, I think I did 21 hours Friday, 20 Saturday, 21 Sunday, then worked all week. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done any grocery store work, so I don't understand. I mean, I understand it, but it's like, they have freezers and coolers full of thousands of dollars of product,
Yep.
whether it's frozen or meat or whatever, and that stuff has to stay cold or is getting tossed out. So, you got to be on it, and you're there till it's fixed. Like, you got to make it work one way or another. Luckily, there's probably some redundancies built in to a lot of this stuff, but yeah, it's people, oh, restaurants demanding. I'm like, man, I bet you cold storage and refrigeration at grocery stores is a lot more demanding than what I do.
Man, I've been up on scissor lifts and full extension, all my winter gear on with a B tank de-icing coils for hours, and you're just like, I just want to go to bed.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
I've got a
What?
friend. He's always posting videos on TikTok, and he's full suits, and he's in there, and you can only de-ice so long before the product starts melting, so we got to turn it back on, let it run, and then come back in, de-ice some more. Like by the time you start feeling your fingers again, you got to turn it back on and let it come back down temperature for an hour or two, and then go back in there and de-ice some more. I'm like, that sounds absolutely miserable.
Days like that, yeah, definitely not the most fun, de-ice and freezers and stuff. But I mean, it's same as anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every part can't be great, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't change it. Like I've done the big commercial HVAC, and the nice thing about that is like, oh, we're warm. It's like, cool, see you tomorrow. Once it's not like a server room or something, right? It's like you can usually get by. But yeah, once it's food, I mean, same with restaurants, right? If they can't cook, restaurant can't open. It's got to get fixed. There's no two ways about it.
So what's one of the biggest jobs you've done?
Like install wise?
Well, just like service work or install or something that's like you didn't think it was going to be what it turned out to be, and it's just like, okay, I was here for one job for 20 hours straight, or what's something that's not normal but it happened, it just sticks out, you remember?
Oh, I had one. It was so they're having issues on and off with their medium temp. Their low temp would just randomly warm up. Everything was warming up like crazy, and they'd find some compressors were overheated. And they couldn't figure it out at the store, so they called in because they were out of town, so they knew enough how to reset things, what not to reset, that kind of thing. So I went out there, and I'm like, kind of looking, and I'm like, all right, it's oil separator. Everything seems like it's working. Everything's getting oil, but suction header's still getting like super warm. Nothing's in defrost, and you're putting everything in defrost, seeing if anything is leaking back to the suction header, and make sure all the valves are seating. Eventually, you go check, and you're like, they have an equalizer line between all the compressors just so they all get equal flow on the low temp. And you're like, oh, weird. Equalizer line is like red hot to every single compressor. All the oil pots like smoking hot. I'm like, oh, crap. Mm-hmm. So I go check, and you're like, okay, it's feeding back. And then that's also hitting the suction header. And then, you go check, and you're like, one of the compressors, the valves are smashed. So it's bleeding hot gas by.
Oh yeah, it's bleeding back through, and the other compressors just sucking it right in.
And the only symptoms they were getting was the suction header was warming up because compressors were tripping off on oil. But it wasn't the compressors that was smashed. It was the other compressors. So, you're just chasing your tail, and then you get that done. You get the compressor change. Well, then you got to go, okay, well, where did that liquid come from? So then you're going around, you're superheating every case, and you're trying to find which one is flooding. Then, eventually you find the TX. Okay, this one's toast, pinned wide open. This is what did it. But it's, hours later.
Yeah, that's wild because something took out the compressor, so you got to find that and work your way back in. That's wild. That sounds like a busy probably 12 plus hours.
It was a long day, yeah. And then you got to drive home.
So like you said, that was a remote one. So like, if you got to get a compressor, do they have extra compressors there, or you got to go back in and get it, have one brought in? What do you do in situations like that?
Where it works pretty organized. Like they're pretty good in a way. Like I'll call back to the city. There'll be one, the wholesaler will have one. And I'll call one of the other guys and say, hey, go grab it, start driving. I'll meet you halfway. We'll just swap it over. Or you grab another guy, you guys come change it. And I'm going to go back to the city and start doing the other calls that are coming in.
Nice. It's cool you got a system like that and everyone's willing to pitch in. Because, I mean, they've probably been in the same boat and they need you, and you guys just understand, like, hey, this is what it is. Occasionally we got to do this, and it is what it is. But like a lot of those grocery stores, though, have redundancies, like multiple compressors. Like you can shut one down and probably still be all right for a day or so. Or is that how that works? Or
depending on the load and the store and time of the year. But this one was tight. They only had 3 compressors on the low temp.
Oh, yeah.
So like they was borderline, and it was coming into summer, and they were like, no, just do it. Because you would have left it a week or two, and we would have hit plus 40, and that thing would have just struggled.
That does not sound fun. Yeah, that's another thing. Like I always hear about, like, so most of your compressor rooms inside then, because I know some here they put them outside or their rooms up on the roof, and it's cold up there in the winter. I complain about zero here, zero Fahrenheit, but I can only imagine up in Manitoba how cold it gets, and some of the issues you start having once it gets cold in the winter there.
Yeah, I think we were up at one service call up north, said, it's too cold, and flew us up there. or sorry, this when we drove up, we're on the ferry going across, and ferry keeps getting stuck in the ice because the ice keeps freezing and refreezing, and it slowly getting across. And we get there, and the disconnect was off.
So you're hanging out anyways because you get the disconnect and wait and make sure there's nothing wrong, and then
it was a 15-hour drive, right? We're not going home that day. We're sleeping and going home the next.
And then the ferry probably doesn't run. It only runs once a day or something.
Yeah, it only so we took it the next day. Same again. It's breaking down. We get across, and my coolant gauge redlines. I'm like, what the hell? So we get out and look, and I'm like, it got so cold. I think it was minus 55 Celsius with the wind. It cracked the coolant pump.
Oh no! So then you're just sitting there.
We're in the middle of nowhere. We're just adding coolant every time it runs out, and driving 50 kilometers an hour. And we have a 7-hour drive to get to the nearest auto shop, and then our coolant freezes. So then we're just like, well, the van dies, but like we're in the boonies. There's like wolves and bears and everything around. No cell signal.
That is absolutely insane. That is insane. So, like when you have to go, does the customer pay for all that time traveling there and back and everything?
Yeah, they kind of understand where they are. Kind of is what it is. There's no one up there.
Yeah. So, like you said, they get pretty good about checking some things and hitting some resets and trying to give you as much information before you get out there, so you can bring, parts or whatever you need to be. That's still wild, though, man. Whew.
That was an interesting drive.
I'll never complain about a 2 or 3 hour drive ever again. And if I do, you get permission to smack me.
Oh, the worst part is you're on one part, you're on nice, smooth pavement, then gravel, then pavement, then gravel, then pavement. So you're like just settling in, and you're like, oh, crap, what was that?
Yeah, you're so remote, though. Like, you're between radio stations probably. And like you don't have cell signal, so you're like, what am I listening to? Like, hopefully you download some audiobooks or some podcasts you can play, on the way up because you don't have signal for anything. That's wild.
That's about it. Yeah, download a bunch of playlists, audiobooks, and you bring the satellite phone from the shop, and off you go.
I didn't even think about that. At least I got a satellite phone for when you guys do go up there.
Before when then sometimes it doesn't catch a satellite, and you're like, cool. Hope for the best.
So what do you do outside of work? Do you have any hobbies? Anything you do to keep your sanity besides work?
I just spend a lot of time with the boys because they're still young now. So usually, take them on big nature walks on the weekend or take them to the zoo, build, I don't know how much Lego with them now at this point, but, just having a blast.
How old are they?
Just turned 7. Twin boys.
Twin boys. Wow. 7 years old. That's a fun age.
Oh, yeah.
My boys I've had 3 kids. My daughter's 24, my son's 22, and my youngest son's 19. And I miss them being little, but now it's kind of weird working with them. Like I don't know. It's different. Like people are like, oh, they got it made because, you're their dad and you'll give them all the information to take care of them. Like, no, they got it worse than anybody else. Cause I will straight ask them, why did you do that? Are you dumb? Like they're not going to tell me. They're going to tell their mom, my wife. That's about it. They're not going to run to my boss. So they don't have it any better than anybody else. I do promise that. But I enjoy working with my kids. Like I said, my oldest been doing it 3 years, and he kind of gets that attitude like he knows what he's doing now. Because he's starting to get pretty confident in what he's doing, and he'll call me and be like, "Hey, have you ever fixed this?" I'm like, "Oh, I've never ran into that." He's like, "Well, I know what it is, and you don't." And he'll just throw it in my face and try rubbing it in. Then he has days like today where he can't solder a 2-inch drain line. He's calling me, begging me for tips on how to fix it. So it all works out in the long run.
Oh, yeah, that's what my wife always laughs. Is like the young line's taking down the old line. Like I'll come home from work and I'm taking my boots off. One of them will jump on my back. The other one's trying to get me in a headlock. And I'm just like, oh, almost got me today. Maybe tomorrow's the day you're the man of the house. I got to live in the garage.
Tag team. Yeah, that's funny. That's cool. Yeah, that'd be fun, twin boys. I bet you'll probably have fun when they get about 13, 14 years old, start feeling it, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Like, we didn't even know we were having twins. We found out at 20 weeks.
Oh, wow. She's like, why am I so big already?
Oh, yeah. Like, I was in trade school. I was doing level 1, right? Week 8, I get a phone call saying, oh, you're having twins. I'm like, huh? What? Like, no indication at all. I'm like, okay, cool. We got one stroller. We got one crib. We got one car seat.
Like, yeah, we're going to rethink this. That's
cool. Yeah, that's good. It's wild. I was like, when I was first born, I was working overnights too. So I'm like, well, I'll stay on the overnights since I'm already working overnights anyway. And then my mother came and stayed with us too, which was awesome. So, you just need that extra set of hands.
Look at him. My son's watching. He said this is my son. He said he calls me for help every other day. Whatever, dude. Don't be lying on me.
He's calling you out now.
Yeah, sure he is. That's funny. Do they play any sports or anything, or just Legos and everything right now? They're not getting involved in any of that yet.
They've been doing little bits here and there, like through the city, like they've done like a couple soccer camps, they've done like some basketball and stuff, but they're nuts. They're just like all over. They just want to free play and go wild.
Oh, that's fun, man. It's a fun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Sweet. All right, man. We are coming up on 45 minutes. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I really appreciate you coming on and talking about, how you got started over in Ireland and how you came over. That's really interesting. That it really wasn't. It was hard, but it wasn't really too difficult, and they make it pretty possible to come across and work. Give you that 1-year visa, and you applied for your citizenship and everything in Canada, and it's really cool that you've made that journey across, and you found success, you found your wife, and you have kids. You got a great career over there.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part is having to do the trade again, but I mean, your choice is either sucks for 5 minutes, get over it and do it, or you do something else, right?
Did that make your training easier since you've already done it once before? You just kind of have to go through the motions, or did you actually learn quite a bit, the second time around as well?
You definitely pick up different things you didn't the first time. Like, it definitely didn't hurt redoing it, but it's just different. Because they're talking about bubble sheets. I'm like, what's a bubble sheet? I'm expecting that board game where you press the bubble and the dice jump around. Like, I'm like, I don't know what a bubble sheet is. Never heard of that before. A lot of culture shock more than anything, right?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Like, the guy will be shouting at me, go grab the crescent wrench. I'm like, what's a crescent wrench? He's like, this thing. I'm like, you mean the shifter? He's like, what's a shifter? I'm like, that's a shifter. He's like, that's a crescent wrench. I'm like, no, that's a shifter.
That's funny. Yeah, because Crescent's just a manufacturer. It's adjustable wrench.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I could see that. That's cool. All right, man. Well, I will link your LinkedIn to this. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your time in the trades and what it's done for you. It seems like you really enjoy everything you've done and really enjoy where you found your home at now, working on rack refrigeration, grocery store, and cold storage stuff. It's always cool to hear different stories about how people got involved and how they found their true calling and that kind of stuff. And it just proves that you can start over, you can move across the world and still do what you want to do and have fun.
Yeah, if you want to do it, you can make it happen, right?
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.